ahead and get started. I know we have some attendees still listening or still dialing in, but I will just introduce myself. My name is Jessie Azrilian. I'm with ACCE in their Education Attainment Division, and I wanted to thank you for joining our bi-monthly webinar series. Today's webinar is called Creating Career Pathways for the Current and Future Workforce. Our moderator, Haley Glover, is the Strategy Director from Lumina Foundation, and we're also featuring two of our ACCE member chambers that were awarded the 2014 Lumina Education Attainment Award, and that was to support their work, their ongoing work and commitment to increase post-secondary attainment in their communities. Participants are available to submit questions throughout on the question panel, and we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the presentations to answer questions in the order that they were received, so feel free to just submit them as you have them. And now I wanted to introduce Haley Glover with the Lumina Foundation. Haley leads Lumina's Goal 2025 strategy to mobilize communities and employers around higher education attainment. This includes leading the Community Partnership for Attainment group comprised of stakeholder coalitions in 75 communities across the country, and Haley can talk more about that. Many of you on the call are part of those communities already, and Haley's role in convenings at Lumina brings together thought leaders, policymakers, and practitioners to influence the national conversation, translate ideas into action, and build the momentum toward increasing post-secondary attainment and college success. And they're a great partner to ACCE and to work with. So thank you for that. And I will turn it over to Haley to introduce our other presenters and give a brief overview.
Hi, Jessie. Can you hear me?
I can.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much. So the purpose of this call today, as you can see, creating career pathways for the current and future workforce. As you are all probably acutely aware, we have millions of job openings in the United States right now, but we're having more and more trouble finding qualified, skilled workers to fill those jobs. And we know that without a talented pool of workers with the right skills, with the right credentials, we're going to be constrained in our nation's growth and our competitiveness moving forward. I'm going to show you some slides in the early portion of this webinar that sort of make the case from an international perspective and give some paths forward. But we want to talk today about how chambers of commerce can partner with businesses to help get workers the training credentials they need to not only be more productive citizens, but to be more productive workers, and how to work with institutions to ensure that what students are learning in the classroom aligns with the competencies that employers seek. The way that we frame career pathways, and I think that's sort of a funny way to put it, but career pathways to Lumina are opportunities for individuals to receive the education and training that enables them to go on for future education or employment. We see these things, often career pathways get talked about in terms of, you know, you're a certified nursing assistant, and then you're an LPN, and then you're a RN, and then you're a, you know, you've got a bachelor's in nursing, and that's not exactly what we're talking about here. I think we're talking about paths for individuals to use their education and training to the best effect for themselves and for the businesses that they work for. So Jessie, if you could advance the slides to get us kicked off here, I think that would be super. Oh, and you saw a very small picture of myself, and I'm glad I'm not on the camera. That's better than what I look like right now. So go ahead and advance, Jessie. Okay, so that's who I am. That's what we're going to talk about today for the first 15 minutes or so of this conversation. So go ahead. The rationale for all of these conversations, as well as for our community work, is based in this premise that the pipeline is not just leaky, like we've heard about it, it's flat out broken. If our water or oil pipelines behaved in this way, we would be in deep trouble. But our human capital pipeline looks very, very broken. For every 100 ninth graders, we find that about 21 of them graduate within 150% of the time it requires to get a bachelor's or associate degree. That's 6 years or 3 years. If we compare this particular rate to the rates of low-income students or minority groups, we find it's even more leaky. What this has resulted in is 36 million adults in the United States with some college and no degree. These are adults who have started college but have not finished, have engaged with institutions, but for one reason or another stopped going and did not attain a degree. Go ahead, Jessie. So I think we skipped a slide here. If you could go back one, Jessie. Oh. She has got a trigger finger like no other. So here's how we reach Goal 2025. First, what is Goal 2025? Lumina Foundation. In case you haven't heard of us yet, we are the nation's largest private foundation that deals exclusively with the issue of post-secondary access and success. And we've oriented ourselves entirely around this big, hairy, audacious goal of what we call the big goal, Goal 2025, and that is that 60% of the nation's adults should have a high-quality post-secondary credential by the year 2025. Here's how we think we get there. All else equal, we will reach about 48–50% overall attainment by the year 2025 if we do nothing different, if we keep going to school and the increases that we're seeing in success in institutions persist. However, we think that that's going to be about 10 to 12 percentage points, or about 19 million degrees shy of what we actually need to compete as a workforce. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. So we see that we add a small slice of the pie, or of the stack here, of additional traditional students. An important thing to note is if we were successful in making sure that every single student in the United States between now and 2025, every single typical 18-year-old, completed high school, went to college, and completed a high school credential, we would not meet our goals. The demographics are just not there. We do not have enough traditional age students who can go to high school and complete a post-secondary credentials to meet that big goal. So what that requires is that we have to focus on adults, which is, of course, where the chambers and businesses really come in, because you don't deal with 18-year-olds on a day-to-day basis. You deal with people who work for you. So we think that we'll be able to attract back a large proportion of returning adults, and that's one area where I know that there's a lot of interest from our chamber groups. We think also that we will be able to start counting in pretty short order high-quality certificates and certification, which often have earning returns that exceed those of a typical associate or bachelor's degree, depending on their field. Go ahead, Jessie. So why is this so important? We know from research from the Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce that we're going to create about 55 million new jobs by the year 2020, 5 years short of our goal. And we know that the vast majority of them, including in that some college no degree area, are going to require a high quality degree or certificate. So already the jobs being produced right now in the next 5 years are going to require more education than what our current workforce has. We know that by the year 2025, upwards of 65% of all jobs are going to require some form of post-secondary education. Simply going to high school and getting that high school diploma, which was enough to get you by for many, many years, is not sufficient anymore. Our CEO likes to say that the high school diploma used to be a finish line. Now it's a starting line. The real meaningful credential comes after high school. So go on ahead, Jessie. All right. Can you advance, please? So where are we right now? Right now we have about 40% of adults with some form of associates or above, which is how the census currently counts it. If you go to the census and look up your community right now, that's all you're going to see in terms of the post-secondary credential. However, what we know right now is that there's about 5.2% of the workforce that's somewhere in that some college no degree space that has a high quality workforce relevant certificate. The way we count that is by looking at certificates that have earnings that are at least equivalent to the average associate degree earnings and that are in field. So we're not counting underwater basket weaving certificates or those kinds of cliches, but ones that are actually valued highly by the workforce, by industry and corporations. The good news is that we're up 2.1 attainment percentage points since 2008. So the trajectory is moving in the right direction, but it's just not fast enough. Go ahead, Jesse. And this just shows you for the last 5 or 6 years what's happened with the population. We see that we've gone from 37.9% in 2008 to about 40% in 2013. The good news is that the attainment rate for the 25 to 34-year-old population, that so-called creative class we all highly value, is going up slightly faster than average, which is very good. And that we know we're now able to count to some degree the high-value certificate attainment rate of about 5.2%. There's a great report, which I think we can send out to you later from the Georgetown Center, that charts the high-quality certificate attainment by state. States like Florida, South Dakota, those with highly sophisticated technical college systems often have very high rates of certificate attainment that can be very meaningful to your workforces. Okay, go ahead, Jesse. So we also always point out that attainment, even though it's at 40%, does not look the same across racial ethnic groups, and that what we know is that we cannot build a just, highly productive and competitive society just by focusing on the students that have been well served by post-secondary systems in the past. What we need to do is make sure that African American, Black, Hispanic, and Native American populations are accessing and succeeding in higher education at rates equivalent or better, given the historical disparities, than white and Asian students. We show this because we think this is actually the most important factor that goes into increasing attainment. Go ahead, Jesse. So where are we internationally? You may have seen this slide before. This is from the OECD, which measures metrics across industrialized nations. You see that the United States actually lags far behind Canada, which has about a 50% attainment rate, Japan, and Israel. What we know is that the United States ranks 4th, but when we take a look at the young population, we actually rank about 14th. So we are not attaining at rates equivalent to or competitive with our international competitors. So that just puts that in perspective for you. Further, we know that in terms of, and I'm going to get into a little bit of the wealth and income disparities in our nation, which are hot topics right now, which is really great in my opinion. We know that in the United States, only 5% of children with parents who haven't graduated from high school go on to achieve a college degree. The OECD average is 23%. That means that other industrialized nations are doing far, far better with low-income populations than we are as a nation. And that we all know, you all live in communities and you all see this firsthand, that poverty is not getting better in this nation, it's getting worse and more entrenched. So go ahead, Jesse. We like to show this slide because what this essentially shows is that every attainment gain we've made in the last 30 years or so, 40 years or so, has been made with high-income individuals. You see the rate for attainment by the age of 24 by family income quartile has gone up from 40% to 77% for the top income quartile, but has raised only 3 percentage points while that population is getting bigger and bigger over the last 50 years, 40 years for the lowest income quartile. And what we call middle class, the second and third quartiles, are not faring well either. The vast majority of those students do not go on to achieve a bachelor's degree by the time they are 24. So this just paints a very bleak, stark picture for you, and I hope that it inspires you the way it inspires me. I get a little indignant when I see this picture because I'm one of the 9%, I have to say, and luck should not be a strategy. So go on ahead, Jesse. I like to show this picture because it really is a nice capsule of what we're trying to work on with our communities, which is that we need to be talking to each other, not playing the blame game, and not pointing fingers. So we are seeing, and I think this is a wonderful effect of the work that we're contributing to and that we're helping to support in your communities, is that we all need to point to the middle and say, what are we doing for the student? How can we help the student and the institutions that he or she attends become much more productive in making sure that everybody is getting what they need, that teachers are supported, that businesses are supported, that institutions are supported, but most importantly, that students are supported to meet their full potential. So advance, Jesse, thank you. So what have we done? Our premise in working with the business community is that businesses indeed are the biggest stakeholders in the success of post-secondary education of all. They live and die by the productivity and skill of their workers. We know that post-secondary education and training is a critical part of equipping American workers to succeed in the new reality of constant change. Every year, employers in the United States spend about $160 billion on education and training. Our premise is that if they use those dollars in more productive ways, then we can achieve collectively a much greater impact, much greater attainment, and much greater skill and productivity on the parts of those workers. Go ahead, Jesse. So we undertook a study in partnership with ACCE and the LA Chamber and Unite LA to survey major businesses that have strong employee benefits programs and education and training programs. We know that the key drivers for post-secondary education for workers from the business perspective are talent development and the competitive advantage. Under talent development, you can see here, it's easier to attract talent, to keep talent, to engage your workers when you're providing some form of professional development, whether that's coming from informal or formal education and training. You receive a competitive advantage as well when you turn towards customer service and loyalty. Workers who have a great experience on the job are more likely to become customers. In this brand-driven age and corporate social responsibility age, we find that folks who are that kind of minded will patronize businesses that do well by their employees. You see cost reductions, you see better operations, you see better high productivity. So there are a number of drivers for post-secondary education for workers on the business side. Go ahead, Jesse. We understand as a result of this survey that employers are really looking for degrees, credentials that offer opportunities that are directly applicable to their businesses. There are few employers that are out there that say we want education for education's sake. Rather, they want education for a purpose, and that is entirely reasonable. And they want programs that allow for the collection of metrics to demonstrate the financial benefits. So why are they doing this? And that there are so many programs out there without a strong ROI capacity existing is sort of stymieing, but also gratifying, and it helps Lumina create, I think, some great strategies. We can talk about this a little bit more down the road, but we're just embarking on a major ROI analysis with a number of major corporations that have got very strong education and training programs. And so those results will be released in fourth quarter of this year and throughout the next year in 2016. So go ahead, Jesse. So what constrains companies when they enter into this sort of thing? First, financial and budget constraints. Often education and training are the first on the cutting board when you have a negative quarterly report. Again, we know that there are no ROIs or success metrics except in those very few cases where employers have been studied by outside groups or where they've taken the initiative to study themselves. We see very, very low utilization of current benefits. So the average is between 3 and 5% in most companies providing education and training programs, which of course is very, very low. And then finally, we see growing skepticism on the part of employers that colleges are up to the task in producing the kinds of skills within their employees that the employer actually needs. Go ahead, Jesse. And then on the employee side, because there was a corresponding survey for employers, we found that employees were inhibited by the lack of visible links between career progress and education attainment. Many companies, and I think this is a reasonable thing, are very reticent to say, yes, we'll give you a promotion if you finish your degree, because they can't guarantee anything like that. Second, somebody who's making $8 to $10 an hour is going to have a very, very difficult time paying the thousands of dollars it requires to go to college, even if they are eligible for tuition assistance or financial aid. There are many, many challenges to being a working adult and student. Many of us probably went to college when we were 18 years old, unfettered by families and responsibilities and bills. And while that's not the case everywhere, those kinds of perceptions have had a very lasting impact on our systems, where oftentimes our institutions are not friendly to adults. They don't take into account work schedules, family schedules, other things that necessarily compete with being a student. We find within companies there's lack of management support often, where maybe the higher ups in the companies are doing a lot of promotion and talking about the program eligibility, but the line supervisor or the direct manager is saying, no, if it's going to take away from your work, we're not going to do it. So there is that. And then finally, this time-consuming life demands, which dovetails very nicely with the challenge of being a working adult and student, because school takes time. So what do we say? We made some recommendations for employers, and you can see these here, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them because we're running out of time. So importantly, I think the idea is that we want to increase involvement and communication with the employees. Where do most employers put information about their tuition benefit program? Of course, they put it in the employee handbook. Now, who, after the first week on the job, references the employee handbook all the time? And so we find that those kinds of hidden strategies are often very effective in making sure people know what the heck's going on. Develop partnership with institutions. Now, the way that I think I look at the very dramatically different graduation completion success rates of institutions across this nation and think, why in the world would an employer partner with a community college with a 3% completion rate? What is the track record there? Making decisions based in spending money based on success, past records of success, as well as turning out employees that have the right skill sets is a very strong idea. We think people should start examining tuition reimbursement programs. As I mentioned, it's very difficult when you're just trying to make ends meet to put out dollars in support of education and training. Rather, we see more and more programs that are doing direct to institution provision of tuition benefits or assistance up front. We are really looking for folks to implement practices that can reduce the cost of education for employees. We see some tremendous examples that were identified in the report that we will make sure that you receive, where employers have used their purchasing power to secure discounts for employees who are going to be attending institutions. And finally, make sure that management is active in their support of attainment for employees, because it results ultimately in higher productivity, improved retention, and better outcomes for all involved when it happens right. Go ahead, Jesse. And I think that's where I'm going to end and turn to our panelists. But I like to put up this quote because it really does a very, very good job in encapsulating exactly what this is all about. Our company is only as good as our employees, and so we must invest in their growth and development. To the extent the company wants to grow and develop, employees are going to take them there, and that's our entire premise here. So I am going to introduce Joe Henning, who is President and CEO of the Aurora, Illinois Regional Chamber of Commerce, and he began that role 10 years ago. This is the largest and longest running membership-based business association in the area. And I'll stop reading what you can see on the screen.
Thank you, Haley.
Point out. So go ahead, Joe. I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss what we're doing locally in Aurora. When I started about 10 years ago, we had a relatively successful and recognized business education partnership, but it wasn't anything with outcomes that we wanted to really tout and celebrate. It was more of having businesses available for classroom discussions. Some of them were doing great things. Some of them were more or less just stopping in, doing the career fair, and leaving. And so we really had to look at what it was that we wanted as a business community to get out of the educational institutions. And a little bit about Aurora. We're about 35 miles west of Chicago. We're the second largest city in the state of Illinois. Nobody knows that because everybody just thinks that all of Illinois is Chicago. But we also have 6 school districts, 7 townships. We're in 4 counties. We work with 2 different workforce investment boards and 2 different community colleges. So there was a lot when we started this undertaking that we really had to look at and work with and try to bring to the table. And we began about 3 years ago with an asset mapping process with Jobs for the Future to look at what the strengths were within the community. As a result of that, we had conversations with about 75 different employers within our region to talk about what it was they were looking for. What we broke it down to was working with those 6 school districts. We looked at the percentage of Aurora students that they served. We looked at the minority population, the low-income population, and the graduation rate. What we were seeing, there is a huge diversity within Aurora. With one school district, it's got a 63% graduation rate, 96% minority population. Literally across the street from them, we have a school district with 98% graduation rate, 43% minority population. So just across the street, we've got this huge disparity that we're trying to work with. Go ahead, Haley, please. What we learned in that asset mapping process, we started looking at those key employers in the labor markets that we had within our community, where we thought the growth was going to be, where we thought the opportunities for a livable wage jobs could be found. And so we started tracking that down. What we identified were health sciences and manufacturing. Part of it was on the current number of job openings they had, and the fact that many of them, especially the healthcare and manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, were going unfilled for over a year. There was that skills gap there. They didn't have the education and the certifications that they needed in order to do that. The other one we looked at was information technology. While it's classified lower on the level of our labor market overview, when you add that into all of these other areas like health sciences and advanced manufacturing and engineering and the different areas, it really did bump that number up of available jobs available to these students. And so we have started talking to the school districts. We talked to the community college. We got the city's support and approval. And we pulled together a group that we began with 4 school districts. We're now with the 5th school district. So we're covering about 95% of the school-age population within the city of Aurora, working with one of the 2 community colleges. And we dove down into what it was we needed to do. And we brought in the business community and we asked them, what are you looking for? Again, it goes back to the cartoon that Haley showed earlier, where everybody's pointing the finger around the room and nobody's really looking in the mirror. And we started asking them, well, if you want soft skills, how are we going to give them those soft skills? How do they learn on the job? How do they learn the responsibilities of showing up on time, working within a team, if we're not giving them the opportunities within the workforce? And so we really became the intermediary for this whole effort as the Chamber of Commerce. And what we were looking for, not just for the goodwill within our community and moving that forward, but it benefits all of us. It benefits our businesses because they're going to be able to find the skilled workers they need to continue to grow and expand. It benefits our community because now we've got a better livable wage with our residents and our workers in the community, so we've got a little bit more discretionary income, and that just continues to snowball. But it also helps us in supporting with the recruitment retention efforts of additional businesses to come in here and be additional employers for the community we serve. And so we were looking at it from the learning experiences for our students, the creation of the talent pipeline and the growth of that, but then also for the economic vitality of the region. So from there, we looked at our highest employers in that. We really got them involved. We have a number of great employers that are supporting this. And then we looked at I'm sorry, nope, you were fine. You're perfect. One more. There we go. So then we looked at from creating the curriculum in part with the employers. They came in, they sat down with a lot of our curriculum developers and our teachers and started creating these real world problems. I have a hard time saying it, but they're doing a great job implementing it. But sitting there and applying that knowledge that the students learning in the classroom so that they realize why they need to know algebra. Why do they have to solve for X? It gives them more of a reason to stay connected and engaged in school. And then we began breaking down opportunities for the work-based learning experiences for these students. We want them to be aware of the careers that are out there. We want them to be able to explore and prepare for these careers. And so we set this sequence up, that's this slide here, working with these business and employers that are in our community. We do a number of great things with them. In fact, we just finished a bus tour where we took out our teachers and counselors and administrators of all of the school districts and all of the community college participating, where they visited different advanced manufacturing facilities, different hospitals, in healthcare facilities and IT areas, so that they had a better understanding of what it was now. The employment is there. When we think of manufacturing, we think of the dark, dirty, dingy floors, and nobody wants to work there. Well, when we show them some of these newer high-tech manufacturing facilities we have in the area, it changes their mind, it changes their perception, and so they're able to better speak to what different career options are out there for the students that they're working with. So we begin in the middle school area where we start bringing the businesses in, working with them to provide guest speaker opportunities, sort of the career day in the classroom, working with teachers to bring those out from the middle school to say, come spend the day job shadowing me, so you have a better idea of what's going on in the business community and you can speak to that for your students. And we take that through, actually through grade 20, we're working with the community college, as I said, but we also have a local four-year university in town. And so we're trying to create these steppable sequencing for work-based learning that these students can begin. There's so many detriments to that. We talked a little bit about the demographics of the community, but what we're really trying to do is open up some of this exploration that they have available to them. I said we've got a number of great businesses. The great thing with that is there's a variety of businesses in all three of those areas that are able to work with us and to be able to share different opportunities that are available to them. And one of the greatest successes, that we've counted this year alone, when we started last year monitoring where we were with these class enrollments within these three pathways, we had about 8,500 student classes registered. When we finished this school year with the registration for next fall, we were almost at 11,000. So we saw a 25% increase in the students registering along these pathways routes, with that better understanding, with the teachers and the counselors and administrators having a better understanding of what those job opportunities were for them. And so we're expecting that, we're going to see those needles change. We're going to see those low graduation rates are going to start creeping back up. We're looking forward to that. So that's what I've got on the pathways. I'd like to turn it over and introduce Allison Van Dam, who's Vice President of the Metro South Chamber of Commerce, and she's going to talk a little bit about healthcare pathways in particular.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Allison Van Dam. I'm with the Metro South Chamber of Commerce, and what we're here today is to discuss a successful pilot program that we initiated to train top industry incumbent workers to be able to better meet the employer demands and the needs within the region. We can advance to the next slide. Great. So a little background on the region. We are located in Massachusetts. Metro South is centrally located between Boston, Providence, and Cape Cod. We're about 30 minutes from Boston by rail. So we have great resources, great infrastructure here. The region encompasses 18 towns, large population, workforce, over 11,000 businesses. Brockton is the largest city within the Metro South region. It has a population of over 94,000 people, and it is a gateway city. It has a long history as the shoe capital of the world, but as a gateway city, transitioning from a manufacturing center into one offering high-skilled jobs has been a challenge. The median household income is low compared to the state average. Our unemployment rate is higher. We have a 7.9 unemployment rate. Also, many of the residents are foreign-born, 24.28% of our residents, high Cape Verdean population, Haitian population. So we have the challenge of the workforce not being able to meet the demands of what the industries need within our region. And also, our employment rate, 17.5% have their bachelor's degree or higher, which is also much lower than the state average. So it's an economically challenged gateway city, limited job opportunities here. Our top industry within the region is healthcare. We have 277 establishments in Brockton alone. 3,500 people are employed in Brockton in the healthcare industry. And it is growing. In southeastern Massachusetts, it's expected to increase from nursing homes to hospitals, healthcare, and beyond. There's an abundance of entry-level workers within the region, and specifically Brockton, but there's a need for higher certifications to get the CNs, the RNs, and the BSNs that the employers need. You can go to the next slide. So the Chamber embarked on a program to be able to train the workers that already exist at these institutions within healthcare to be able to give them that training that they need to move up the career ladder and be able to fulfill the needs of their employers. So we met with the healthcare industry of the members that we have within the sector, and what they identified as their needs were a mechanism for current entry-level employees to progress through the career ladder and training to achieve certification and career advancement. And then on the other end, the creation of a pathway for qualified candidates to go into higher levels of nursing and allied health fields needed by the employer. So our goals within this program were to train the healthcare workers to meet those needs of our top industry, to expose more than 250 people, healthcare already incumbent workers, to move up the career ladder, and to increase the retention rates while lowering turnover rates. You could go to the next slide now. So we were able to do this through we have a Metro South Higher Educational Collaborative, which has been meeting for a few years. It's a system of partners working to advance the workforce of the region through the collective input and joint programming. So it includes many of the training centers, colleges, and universities within the region coming together for this purpose. It's also achieved this program because we have so many members that are in the healthcare industry. So we were able to reach out to them to discuss their needs to help them advance. We were awarded a $250,000 workforce training grant in 2012 and 2013, which allowed us to start our work on this project. It was a state consortium grant for companies who are looking to train employees in job-related skills that would be developed by the company, in this case, the Chamber. It was the first chamber in the state to receive an award like this. And then the Lumina Award allowed us to continue our work and also to be able to pass it off so it can gain some traction and longevity beyond the course of our work here. So activities included intro sessions where each of the students, we had 140 students that were enrolled. They all met one-on-one in private counseling sessions. And what's important in that process was our counselor helped with career mapping. And they gave them different information about organizational skills. They went through a AccuPlacer test to see about their writing, reading, math skills. A lot of them needed ESL classes as well. So then we got the students to enroll at the college or university. We had sessions at the universities and the colleges as well, so they would become acquainted and learn about the programs. Then we provided one-on-one midterm checkups. So this grant allowed us to provide tuition reimbursement for the students. The employers provided a matching contribution in the form of covering their salaries while the training was going on. Important to the success of the program is also marketing it. You know, our newsletter goes out with a regional newspaper, so we were constantly getting the word out to about 20,000 people about the good work we were doing and how it was helping people advance and hopefully encouraging and motivating other people to do the same. And then continue the program through healthcare entities. We've been working with the HR departments at the hospitals and the healthcare entities to be able to know that the steps required based on the success to be able to encourage the next generation and the next round of workers. You can go to the next slide. So a little background on the students. 70% were single mothers, 60% were minority, and English was not their first language of these students. Most of them were CNAs, but some were lower down on the chain. They were dietary cafeteria workers looking to move up that career ladder. You can see here we have some of the programs. We do certificate programs for them, award ceremonies, and you can see there that there was computer class. We actually got them to host one of the local colleges to host a computer class for this purpose. And it's the first time that the college had hosted something like this, offered a class that was industry specific. Next slide. So some of the successes. So we had more than 140 students. 90% of the students completed the program. 10% received their CNA certificates. 5 students received title changes, and this is just within the past year and a half. Improved the retention rate of the employees instead of having to go back out and paying for the training of new employees. it gave them, they were vested in the company now. So they will move up that career ladder, they'll stay with the company, and they don't have to go out and train new employees. There's a lot of positive feedback on the program. Like I mentioned, the local college now offers industry-based computer classes. There's an initiative for a downtown higher education center, which the chamber had advocated for. There was no center, so now this is 3 colleges, universities coming together that will be offering classes downtown. And careers and health programs and classes will be part of that, so we're very proud of that. And we've also gotten HR reps at the hospitals to learn how to talk to their employees to encourage them to move up the career ladder based on the model that we have started and the success stories of people coming back and saying how important it was for them. So we got the hospitals to understand, the healthcare facilities to understand how important this education is. So we're inspiring a new round of students as well. Next slide. So you can see some quotes here from some of the students, and I'll let you read those, but very positive comments. People are very thankful that we were able to provide this tuition reimbursement when they might not normally be able to afford the education, and to be able to have that motivation of really a counselor and advocate for them to be able to do this. Next slide. So this is a win-win-win-win case. So the chamber wins because from our goal and mission, workforce development is increasing, educational attainment is increasing, healthcare industry is aided, so there's more job creation and retention. The colleges benefit from their enrollment and they receive the funds from the tuition fees. The employers, they have more proficient employees, lower turnover rates. From a 2020 report, 25,000 to 30,000 average cost for employee turnover rate for professional jobs. So we're saving them money in that. And we're also, when they didn't have those employees before, they couldn't find the workers that are at that skill level that they need. Now they have them that they've trained themselves. The healthcare employees receive training and degrees, so that obviously helps them move up the ladder and also increases the life quality of life for them. So next slide. So really what we want to leave you is that the chamber can be a leader and a convener, and to really rally around regional and industry strengths to transform a community and create a new generation of workers that's ready to tackle the workforce issues that an area is facing. And it's because of our natural relationship that we have with the businesses in different sectors within our membership, working with educational partners and the industries and resource partners as well. So that's what we have on this program. Christopher Cooney, our President and CEO, he will be available for any questions as well if you have any additional questions. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to just make another statement. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to pop them into the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen there. We did have a question about curriculum that actually was the same question that I had, and that is a question for Joe, which is, number one, did the curriculum scenario in which you were working align with the Common Core, or were you working in a non-Common Core state? And then how would you describe the process for actually getting the work you're doing embedded in the curriculum at the schools?
That's a great question, so thank you. I'm sure you can imagine us approaching the business community, approaching the teachers and talking to them about this. We did get a little bit of pushback. What we did was we explained how this would support their implementation of the Common Core standards, and we were able to talk to them about that. They became excited because this was helping them with that curriculum development and that implementation. As a result, the 4 education associations that represent those educators in those 4 participating school districts are all on board. They've all given us letters of support as we've gone after other grant opportunities and other pieces in that we're looking at. So yeah, what we're doing is we bring in, ultimately we leave that curriculum development up to the school districts, the chief curriculum developer and the educators within the classroom, because they have that background. But what the business community is bringing to the table then is that opportunity for authentic problem solving. There's that collaboration. There's an engagement of the students, hopefully, and then what they get out of it is that development of reasoning and critical thinking skills, which is part of what we're talking about when we talk about what we've termed business acumen, but generically is known as those soft skills. And so what we're doing is giving them that opportunity to apply that knowledge they're learning to some critical thinking, some reasoning development. So yes, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit more about the soft skills aspects, and I'm really sort of fascinated by the idea that you took that advice about soft skills and then turned it back to the employers themselves and said, how are they supposed to learn it without you? So tell me a little bit more about that process.
It was a great conversation we had, and this was a couple of years ago. We brought the educators in and they sat with our representatives from the educational facilities. And, you know, on one side of the room, you've got one group, and on the other side of the room, you've got another. It was kind of like a grade school dance. And the more the conversation went, it finally came back around to, you saw the light bulbs go off where they realized this was something that everybody had to take ownership of. And so as they were having those conversations and those opened up, the business community was more willing to embrace these opportunities to get the students into the work experiences, and we've been very creative. I mean, you can imagine with these three different career paths, we're up against some tough brick walls. The advanced manufacturing, unless you're 18, you can't get onto the shop floor. Healthcare, you've got a lot of the HIPAA and the universal precautions that we're dealing with. IT, there's a lot of security and the privacy in that we're dealing with. So we've been a little creative there too in looking at how some of these internships will work, and we began what we've termed as project-based internships. Last summer we had students working with some of our employers in more of an independent study / internship opportunity, and worked on Google mapping of some of our downtown areas. Helped them begin that teamwork that they would need to go to work with. Started critical thinking skills. They learned how they could improve some of the processes that they were doing in order to improve what Google was mapping out there on the internet for our area. You know, working with businesses and adults, having those conversations with those business owners that they were, working with, so that they could begin the communication skills structure. And so our community, our employers have really embraced this as an opportunity to expand what their talent pipeline is. We know that there are positions available right now, but we also know that it's just going to explode in the next couple of years as we look at the baby boomer generation retiring and growth in business in that for our region. So they really are embracing this. They're supporting it both with the time resources, the human resources that they have, and even to some extent financial resources in order to get some of this into the classroom.
Thank you, Joe. So, Allison, you had mentioned counseling being an important part of your program, and so I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit deeper where the counseling services were coming from, how you found them, or where, and the kinds of skills that you looked for from your counselors or whoever was playing that role in order to best serve students. Because I think that's a very big problem as we talk about getting more students to go back or to engage in the first time, is what kind of advice are they getting and from whom?
Right. And we only had one counselor actually. So her name was Beverly. She is an RN, so she has experience within the nursing industry and also with education as well. So she would meet with them one-on-one, and she was really their life coach in some ways as well. She coached them on how to manage their time. A lot of them were single mothers. They have families. So she took that all into consideration. You know, these are real people dealing with real stresses. So she talked to them about time management, their learning styles, organizational skills, and then along with that AccuPlacer, to be able to determine, she would sit with them and map out this career mapping and course of what the plan was, each class they should take. So they're not also taking additional classes that will cost money that won't help out in their degree and the certification that's needed by the employer. So that was a big part of it, and she was their mentor. She was there with them the whole time, through the email checkup, the call. She was the one source of contact, the one point of contact, and she met with them multiple times throughout the phase. So I think that in doing that, you need to establish someone, put someone in this position who's maybe not representing the employer because they might have their own interests in mind. You need, having someone who is an RN who's experienced in the field, but also is for the interest of the organization as a whole in the program to be able to help the student succeed.
Great, thank you for that. And I noticed, you sort of flashed through the last slide in your deck a little bit quickly, but I saw something that said don't use tuition or use tuition reimbursement. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So just learning from example, if you're providing upfront the reimbursement, paying for the classes, then they might not graduate. It gives them less of an incentive to complete it, is what we found. So by doing the reimbursements, you're ensuring that they are completing the program, that they get the good grades, and that they're
putting some skin in the game. Yeah, sure.
Chris is putting some input in there. Yeah, they had to have a B or better in order to have that reimbursement.
Excellent. Did the students, particularly at the low end of the pipeline, receive any other kind of financial aid to go?
Christopher Cooney is here as well, so let me have him come a couple
I apologize, but they had support from the employer community as well. Their employers paid some of their time to attend the classes and also provided, in some instances, classroom space and things like that.
But as long as they got the B or better, then it was completely supported through this grant.
Okay, terrific, terrific. Thank you so much. And then finally, as we sort of get to the witching hour here, a question for both of you, and that is how you engage with your post-secondary institutions. There's a reputation, of course, with higher ed and the academy that they're not easy to work with, particularly when you're asking them to change how they interact with people or engage. So I'm wondering if you could just give us a brief description of any kind of challenges or successes that you had in working with your institutional partners. Joe,
the challenges were the consistency in leadership throughout the 3.5 years which we engaged in this program, meaning we at one point, 2 years in, we tallied that we had gone through 8 hospital administrators, college presidents, and HR directors, and so you're constantly having to remind people that this institution signed on to this agreement and that we're all committed to it, and kind of re-explain it. What was most helpful, though, right from the beginning, was sitting down with the presidents of the colleges, who will all serve on our board of directors, and the presidents of the hospitals, who all serve on our board of directors, and get their buy-in. As soon as we had their buy-in, and in some cases their involvement in getting the HR department to also commit to this, it went a lot smoother. Once students started enrolling, and typically they enrolled through a simple email that was sent out by HR saying, hey, listen, if you're interested in going up the career ladder, there's this initiative, could provide some support and some guidance in re-engaging in your degree pursuits. We will help fund that because we have tuition reimbursement, but if you're interested, there's an information session, and HR is going to host it, and it's going to be here, and the chamber will be there, and the colleges will be there, and they'll help sit down with you and kind of assess where you are and where you need to go. So once we get a couple of students, a few students into that program, the word spread pretty rapidly, and as the longer the program went on, the more people were calling us trying to enroll in this, and it ended up, some folks didn't even qualify because we were working with incumbent workers. So a friend of a worker might find out about it and show up at our offices saying, hey, how do I get into this nursing program? I work at a nursing home, but I want to go back to school. And of course, we'd have to explain it's part of an incumbent worker program, and your employer currently isn't involved, but we hope that they will be in the future. So that's kind of how we engaged.
That's great. Allison and Chris?
Haley, I would say, I talked about having 2 community college districts within our community. I made a point to mention that we worked with one. So yeah, some of them are a little bit easier to work with. But the one that we're working with is absolutely wonderful. They completely understand dual credit options. This year alone, we worked through and we were able to double those dual credit opportunities for the participating school districts and the students within them. They understand that we have an MOU with the 4 districts, the community college, the city, and the chamber to make sure that we're, no matter what changes, because we did too. We just experienced 3 superintendents retiring at the end of last school year. So this year was a little bit of catch up with the new ones, but also keeping us moving forward. We've got great opportunities now already in place. One of the districts has a huge program within healthcare that graduates a great number of their high school students, not just with a diploma, but with a CNA certificate through the community college. But the community college also understands that this, for many of these, as we talk about those low-income families and the, some of these in many cases are going to be the first students that go to college. They understand that this is a door opener for them to show these students, what college is like and how they can succeed at college. It's a fear, it's an unknown, but the community college uses it as a doorway opener. So they understand the benefit of that as well.
Excellent. And Allison, I very much liked the way that you framed the win-win-win-win. Oftentimes the institutional ramifications they go unmentioned. So this kind of thing can be very productive for the institutions as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask one final question as we wrap up here, and that is to say, was this, Allison mentioned in the closing remarks that she made that this was a very interesting opportunity for the chamber to act as a convener and coordinator of the work. And I'm thinking about the role of the chamber for everybody on the phone here is what was the biggest lesson you took away about your role in the community as a result of your project here?
Wow. I will say that when we started with that group that signed the Memorandum of Understanding, there was an awareness and an agreement from all that the chamber would be the intermediary. It wasn't anything I pushed for or lobbied for, but they felt in order to bring the business community to the table, they needed what the business community wanted to see out there in leadership. They didn't want to see it struggling through education and the length of time it takes to make change, and that they wanted something done immediately. And so it became obvious to the leadership group that it needed to sit here. Personally, I think as a chamber executive, you have to be able to bring people to the table, but also to deal with conflict resolution. I will tell you that over the past couple of years, my skills in that set have gotten a lot better. You've got businesses that want something to change like that, especially if they're small businesses or privately held businesses. They can change their mind tonight, and tomorrow they're going to do something different. Education, on the other hand, takes a little bit of time to get it all planned out, to get it through the board. In some cases, you don't see the results until 12 years from now. So, there was that conversation that we had back and forth with that and try to keep everybody engaged and still working together, but we're not working on the same time frames in some cases.
Yeah. How about you, Joe?
Oh, that was true. This is Allison. So I think I answered a lot of this before, but the chamber is a natural leader in being able to bring people together. We do span the different sectors. Private sectors can kind of sometimes only be aware of their interest, and they're not aware of the education, what's going on in the community, how to connect the different groups, bring them together. So I think the chamber is a natural convener, a natural leader in bringing these groups together.
I would say what they all realized, and we soon came to realize as a value, is that our number one employment sector is healthcare in the region, which they knew. But when it came to career ladder training, they were all doing their own thing. and the chamber was able to kind of get them more on the same page in terms of looking at the interest of their existing workers and moving them up the ladder, and that value versus trying to recruit new people into the area to fill jobs within that ladder. And so when they start to look at their own employees as more valuable and have their ability to fill positions, then it becomes a greater bond, I think, between the employees and the employer in terms of long-term career benefits. So.
I also think it helps because the chamber, I mean, we're more aware at a macro level what's going on with the economic development and job creation, and to be able to encourage the local educational institutions to develop the programs that are needed to fill these workforce gaps is important, and I don't know that that dialogue would have happened without this program.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for your very, very thoughtful comments in the presentations and the awesome work. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jessie to close us up.
And yes, and Haley, thank you so much for moderating and for your contributions, and to Joe and Allison and Chris for presenting, as well as just your leadership in the community. You can find this presentation, you can download that on the sidebar of the webinar, and we'll also be sending you a recorded version, and that'll be up on ACC's website. You can find in-depth interviews with both of these chambers that Joe and Allison and Chris conducted with us on our Goal 2025 awardee blog series. There are 2 of the 7 winners from 2014-15, and other additional resources and best practice samples on our Cradle to Career Education Workforce Development Chamberpedia page. So thank you so much.